Welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. Today, we are talking about the millennial career crisis because most people build their entire career based on a decision that they made as a teenager. So think about that. When you are 18 years old, you are literally choosing what you're going to be doing for the next 30 years before you have any experience, before you've ever lived, before your brain is even fully developed, before you know your strengths or what actually would make you happy or fulfill you, you make that decision. And then you spend the next 10 or 15 years chasing success, climbing the ladder. And then one day you finally land the role that you have been waiting for a very long time. And when it shows up, you start questioning, is this really it? Like, is this what I have worked my whole career for? And if this is you, this is not failure. This was me too. And this is what happens when the person you have become now no longer fits the career you chose when you were like 18 years old, or the career you chose 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Because the truth is, we're evolving every single day. That is the whole point. So if you have worked for years towards the goal, and finally achieve it and start to finally ask yourself, wait, is this it? After you landed the role, the title seems impressive, the salary's good, maybe your boss is even great. And from the outside, your friends are like, oh my goodness, you did it. Like, congratulations. But internally, you're like, okay, congrats, but now what? And something feels off, but not wrong, just like incomplete. Maybe it doesn't feel like you once dreamed it would or thought it would, which is the millennial career crisis. But to be honest, even if you're Gen Z or another generation, the career crisis is something that is happening all the time with people that are landing the roles they thought that they wanted, they worked their asses off to get, and then realize this isn't it. And that's what we're talking about today. We're going to break down what to do about it next, because I have been in this situation and I have now interviewed hundreds of people for my book that have been in this situation, and we're breaking down what to do next. Hey, it's Irina Pozan, and welcome back to the Career Cravings podcast. This podcast has a simple mission. It's to help ambitious professionals like you build the career and life that you've been craving. Over the past 15 years, I've worked as an HR leader, designed hiring systems, led recruitment teams, and I've sat on the other side of the hiring table. I've seen what works in today's job market, what doesn't, and what separates those good candidates from the ones that actually land their dream roles. Now I'm bringing everything I've learned straight to you. Each episode is packed with actionable insights and tools to help you land your dream role sooner. Now let's dive in. So if you followed along here for some time, you already know this has happened in my own career. When I was 18 years old, I came to my dad and I said, hey, I want to be an interior designer. I want to do something creative. I want to start my own business. And at that time, that felt aligned. And funny enough, I have a creative business today. So I was right. But when I came to him, his reaction was like, oh my goodness, you need to get a stable corporate job in an air-conditioned office. And because he was an immigrant and he had to work so physically hard, this was his definition of success. And this is what he wanted to see me do. So that's exactly what I did because I was 18 years old. So I made the decision to go into HR, right? And then I spent the next 15 years in HR doing that and doing the next logical step, one step at a time, landing the next promotion and the promotion after that and the one after that and one after that until I finally landed the role that I thought was my absolute dream role. The director of talent management. This is something that literally since the very first job in HR, that was the job that I knew that I would love the most. And I landed it. And literally weeks later, I was like, is this really it? And I was in my mid-30s. So I knew I had many years to go and realizing that I did not climb the ladder to reach the top of where I wanted to go, only to feel like this can't be it. This isn't what I thought it was. This isn't as fulfilling. When the role itself was great. It was an incredible role. I had the perfect boss. I had an incredible salary. I had everything that I once wanted, but I knew it wasn't it. And I started to hear this whisper in my own head. I just knew it, kind of like when I was 18 years old and I knew what I wanted from the get go. Everything looked great on paper, but I knew it wasn't what I was meant to be doing. So it's like after the excitement settles, I often hear my clients also come back to me and they start thinking about their next role and thinking that the next role is going to be the one that brings them the fulfillment. And they're like, okay, if I could only do this, if I could get that next role. And the problem is fulfillment isn't at the top of a career ladder. It's not like you're going to land that next role and everything's going to suddenly change. And I know this realization is often incredibly confusing because from the outside, you're doing the thing. You're doing the thing that you always knew you wanted to do. But it feels like maybe we're not allowed to question it. We should just be grateful. We should just continue on in that role. But if you've ever felt like that whisper where you're thinking, is this really it? Then this episode is for you. We're going to break that down. So let's talk about why this happens. The truth is, most people don't stop to think about why it's happening. And I didn't either. I was just sort of like, Irina, be quiet, keep moving, be grateful, keep doing it until the moment that I couldn't do that anymore. But the truth is that when we make our first decisions, when we're like 18 years old, 19, 22 years old, at that age, our brains are literally still developing. Our frontal cortex is literally not developed. We're influenced by other people that are well-meaning, like our parents, teachers, and they give us their definition of success. And they tell us what decisions we should be making based on what they believe success looks like or what it looked like for them, right? And I know I'm going to fall into this trap as well because my son is only 9 years old. And I know when he goes to make his career decision, of course, I'm going to be telling him what I think he should be doing, right? But this advice is what worked for me. But things evolve, roles evolve. The environment evolves, we evolve. And very few people, when they're 18 years old, actually understand what type of work is going to energize them long term, what the environment's going to look like 10 years out, what kind of impact that is truly going to bring them meaning, right? So we just choose something. And often as a high achiever, we stick with it. So we continue to climb the ladder. We go for the next logical role, thinking that's the one. Like if I'm paid 40% more, for sure I'll be fulfilled. And from experience of doing that, I just know that that's not how it works. Money is really nice after it meets your basic needs. And then after that, it gets old pretty fast. I mean, it's great, but only for so long. That's not what truly builds that fulfillment. So something interesting starts to happen after about a decade. Researchers and psychologists often call this the millennial career crisis. But the truth is, it's not just about millennials. So every generation, once we're hitting our late 20s, 30s, 40s, we often pause, especially at those milestone moments, and we think about, wait, is this really the life I want to build? And studies show that 60% of people report feeling disengaged at work from Gallup. Right? And Deloitte recently did a study, and it says that half of the millennials say that they're reconsidering their career path entirely. And I'm a millennial, and I totally get that because I've been there too. I'm like, well, what should I do next? This doesn't feel like it. And the truth is, we evolve. So think back to who you were when you made your career decision. What did you look like? What values did you have? What were your strengths? So when I think back to that age, when I made the decision initially to go into HR, I was living in government housing with my parents who divorced. I was living with my mom and we had literally no money. And I wanted to live a life that was much better than that. I wanted to feel financially secure. So the needs that I was meeting then were all about security, stability. And I got that. And I checked those boxes and that was perfect for where I was then. But now looking back, I'm in an extremely different place. It's like night and day. Feel very financially secure. I am no longer worried about those needs of safety and security and stability. When we think about like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I'm now trying to reach that self-actualization point which is finding fulfillment from my career. How can I make the biggest impact in my career? It's kind of like putting a round object in like a square peg, right? It just doesn't fit. Like if I'm still trying to find fulfillment from a role that gave me the things I was initially satisfying, it's not going to work in the same way. That's why I felt so fulfilled earlier in my career, right? Because I was getting that stability and that security. So I want you to think about, who were you when you made your career decision and what influenced you? Was it also a parent? Was it a friend? How did you know this was something that you wanted to do? And since then, I want you to also think about like, what has changed for you? Maybe you're still trying to grow your career in a way where you are satisfying a need you don't even have anymore. And then we wake up and we wonder why it doesn't feel fulfilling. And that's when people often start asking that question, what do I actually want now? So for me, this is what I did next. So after I became aware that this was how I was feeling, and I actually started listening to myself. And one year, you probably know this story, but I was declared cancer free. I break it all down in the third episode of this podcast if you've never listened to that. But after I got that news, I was like, okay, I am finally going to make this next chapter of my career the most fulfilling. But I didn't know how I was going to do that. So I kind of had this diagram in my journal because I'm a journaler. I journal every day. And I wrote out two options. I'm like, I could be the CHRO. I was being groomed for my boss's position, who was the CHRO. Like that could be my next role. But I knew, like, from looking at it, I'm like, that's not what I want to do at all. Like, I thought I had the better job, not title wise, not pay wise, but from like the function, like leading talent management, creating programs, helping people get to the next level of their careers. That's what I wanted to do. But I could see my boss wasn't doing any of that. He was working with the union really closely. He was focused on financials, working with the CEO on a daily basis and putting out fires. He was in spreadsheets all day. I didn't want that. Like, that's not what was going to be fulfilling for me. But again, I was trying to be logical. I'm like, of course, being in my mid 30s, the next logical step is that role, my boss's job, right? And if you're also thinking about like, maybe your boss's job is not what you want to do for the next 10, 20 years, then this is something to think about. So that was one option. And then the other option that I was thinking through was starting my own business, but I didn't know what that looked like. And I am not anti-corporate. I do not believe everyone should run their own business because I actually gave up a 9 to 5 to work 24/7. So it's definitely not for everyone. And I've seen a ton of businesses fail. But for me, this was something that I knew I wanted to do since I was 18 years old. I was just too afraid to do it. And I took other people's advice. So one year, I knew that I needed to go quiet and listen to what I really wanted internally. So I went to the spa and I meditated for 8 hours, literally 8 hours of silence by myself. And what came out of that was extreme clarity because these were thoughts I was already thinking for years, but now I was actually getting more clear on them. So what I would say is if you are feeling this way where you're questioning, is this really it? What will I do next? What will the next career move for me look like? These are some questions that I really want you to think through that create clarity. Question 1, what influenced the career path that you originally chose? Maybe you were 18, maybe you were 22, maybe it was 5 years ago. Was it advice from your parents? And what need were you trying to satisfy? Was it stability or security like me? Was it a teacher that suggested it? Was it a sibling that you followed in their footsteps? And because, you saw your parents give them praise, you wanted to do the same. There's nothing wrong with any of these reasons. But next, I want you to think about, who have you become since then? Like, since that time you made a decision, what experiences have shaped you? What strengths did you develop? What changed in the external environment? I mean, AI has changed everything. Maybe the role that you originally were doing is not really relevant anymore. What kind of work energizes you now? So the cool thing is, once you have more experience, once you try different things, you're no longer just making a random decision based on other people's opinions. You're actually making decisions based on what you know you love. So for me, I discovered what I love, which is exactly what I'm doing now through what I was doing. Like I love building coaching programs and I was doing that in my corporate roles. And then I'm like, wait, I could do like more of this. I could do this all the time. So that's what I ended up doing. And it's through trial and error. I thought I would like certain things and then I knew I hated them. Like there were so many aspects of my corporate role that I literally hated. Like, for example, my first role, I used to cry coming home from the office like fairly often. And it was because I was doing things that like were so misaligned with who I was. For example, I had to do payroll. It was for a manufacturing facility and I hate numbers. Like I am a data driven person, but working in spreadsheets with numbers is like not what I love. So when I saw the CHRO doing that all day, I was like, red flag. I already know I don't like that. So I had to do payroll for that location. I had to count up if anyone worked any overtime. I had to look at their manual spreadsheets. It was disgusting. I hated it. Like it was so against what I knew I was good at. And I was spending time doing things I knew I wasn't good at. And because of that, I hated it. But that was just one aspect of my job. But I wouldn't have known that. Well, I could have probably looked at like my grades in accounting from college to know that it wasn't my favorite. But like until you try it, you don't really know. And that is the whole point. What strengths have you developed? What have you learned that you absolutely love? What kind of work energizes you now? Because your career that once perfectly fit, amazing, that was for one of your eras. And now you're in a new era. I want to talk about Taylor Swift. I can't use the word era without talking about Taylor Swift. So let's think about this. One of Taylor Swift's biggest tours that broke all of the records was called the Eras Tour. And in the Eras Tour, what she did was honor every single era of her life that she was in. So from the 13-year-old singing those types of songs, to then having her heart broken, to then finding love most recently. And each era was so distinctly different. She kept evolving, and each one of those albums was so different. But then when she put them all together in one tour, like people lost their minds because it was so great to see her honor all of these different phases of her life. And when you think about this, you are going to be in a different era from when you were 18, 28, and 38, 48, 58, 68. Like each time you are going to evolve, and your career needs to evolve with that. Your career needs to evolve with who you've become for it to be fulfilling. So when I speak to people and they landed the roles they wanted, and then they come back to me like a year later, they're like, I want the next role now. And I'm like, why? And we get into the details of that. Is it because you want more impact, more leadership, more flexibility, more purpose, more creativity? What is it that you want next? And that's going to determine what you do. But the first step is what we're talking about today, which is that ultimate clarity. Some people want more challenge. Some people want more recognition with a title, more pay. Cool. Figure out what that is. And the first step that I want to leave you with is that reflection. There's no way to skip this. If you skip this, you'll do what I did, which is just chase the next logical role over and over and over again without learning that it doesn't actually end in fulfillment. There is nothing at the end of the career ladder that is different. There is no magical rainbow at the end of it. What really brings fulfillment is finding out who you've become and aligning your role to your new era, to who you have become. So the solution is not always quitting your job and finding a new one. Sometimes it is figuring out what you want more of. I'll give you another example. So I was in an HR manager role years and years ago, like 10 years ago. And in this role, I was doing a bit of everything. You would say it's kind of like a generalist role. I was leading projects and I was working with clients as a business partner and. Like I was doing a bit of everything. I was managing performance management, absence management, kind of doing literally a bit of everything, doing a bit of recruitment, bit of this, bit of that. And one day I kind of sat back and did this reflection as well. And I thought about, okay, cool. So those are the things that I'm doing. What do I want more of? What do I want less of? Like ideally, if I knew I could not fail, I could do anything. I can land any role next. Like what would I do? When I thought about it, I'm like, I need more talent management in my life. This is what lights me up. And I thought about like, what is effortless to me? Like, I need no preparation to talk about when I'm helping my clients with this. I feel lit up. Like, what are those things? And I found that it was like the coaching side, the building programs end to end. That was like my number one thing that I loved doing that felt effortless, that felt the most fulfilling. I would see people go through my next gen programs and then I would see them get promoted. And that was like, I could die happy. But the problem is that wasn't what I was doing full time. Like, yes, I would create a mentorship program and then that went company wide. So that was very fulfilling. But then still on the back end, I was managing like performance and absence management and doing investigations and like things that are like fine, but they weren't the exciting part for me. So I figured out, who have I become? What have I become good at? Where are my skills? How do I marry that with what I do next? And I figured out that the talent side is what I needed more of. So I made a plan. I'm like, okay, cool. I need a director of talent management role. How do I do that? And I created a plan to get there. So maybe it's writing down what energizes you at work. And then I want you to also, this is a step I skipped earlier in my career, but reaching out to someone who actually is doing that role that is interesting to you, that you think you're going to love, like reach out to them and see what it's really like, see what their day-to-day is like if you don't have access to it. It's not always the best next step to just be like, this is what my boss does, so this is the next role for me. Like truly think about what comes easily to you. That is also something that often feels the most easy and effortless and fulfilling, right? When I was doing payroll, like I mentioned, that was hard. I was bad at it. It was never going to be something I wanted to focus on. In fact, if I ever interviewed for a role and they said like, there's some payroll in this one, I'd be like, no, thank you. This is not for me, right? Because you get to know who you are through the process of becoming. So if you've realized you're not where you thought you'd be, you didn't fail. You have grown. You have become someone new. And that is the whole point. You're in a new era because careers are not static. You don't just make one decision when you're 18 years old and then climb that ladder forever on. Like I have friends that are lawyers, multiple actually, and they did everything they were supposed to do. They got an incredible education. Then they landed a high power job and then they started making a lot of money. And then they got promoted to partner and then senior partner and then equity partner. And then they're looking around, they're like, I don't want to do this for the next 30 years. Definitely not. And they've evolved. They've had families. They want more flexibility and everything has changed. And now they're thinking about, well, it doesn't make sense to leave this high paying job that I have all this education in, that I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to, right? So it's like sometimes we are torn between the logical path and what we really, really want, but the clarity comes first. What are you good at? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And then you can truly design the type of role that you want next. That's exactly what I have done with my career. So I know it seems scary, but it is possible for you too. So if this episode has resonated with you, please let me know. You can DM me on Instagram, on LinkedIn, Career Coach Irina or Irina Pozan, and please share it with someone who might need to hear this. If this resonated, you're exactly who the show is for. Thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to see you in the next episode. We, in the future, are going to continue having this conversation, and I will walk you through additional steps on what to do next to find the most aligned, most fulfilling role for you. Because my goal isn't to help you just land that role that makes you happy for 6 months or 8 months or 12 months. It's like, how do we actually design your career end to end in a way that it is fulfilling for the long term? I love that shit. All right, see you in the next episode. Hey, before you go, if you've enjoyed listening to today's show, I would love your support. Please take a moment to leave a review anywhere where you listen to podcasts. And here's the exciting part. I'm running a special contest and giving away a one-on-one session with yours truly. All you have to do is leave a review, take a screenshot, and send it to me in my DMs. All of my contact info is in the show notes. I appreciate you so much, and I cannot wait to build the career and life that you've been craving together. See you next week.